All right, my social impact friends, grab a seat and settle in because today's video is all about the world's biggest tech showdown, where AI meets real life. First, we're heading straight to Los Angeles, where wildfires are spreading like bad gossip, and the city's trying to put it out with a side of drama, climate change, and insurance woes. Spoiler alert, not everything is as it seems. Then, we're taking a detour to Uganda, where AI is actually trying to save lives, not by making cat memes, but by diagnosing malaria. Can a smartphone really do that? You bet. And to top it off, we're diving into the world of international law, where a bunch of countries are calling out high emitting nations for climate damage. But here's the catch: will anyone actually listen? If you're ready to be informed, inspired, and maybe a tiny bit amused, so hit that like and let's get started. All right, so our first story is something that's hitting way too close to home for me and a lot of people in Los Angeles. Those recent wildfires that have literally turned parts of the city into something straight out of a post apocalyptic movie. I'm talking scorched earth, flames eating up everything in sight, and neighborhoods literally becoming war zones. And trust me, I've lived here long enough to know that fires are nothing new, but it's getting out of hand. These flames keep getting bigger, hotter, and faster every year. We're not just talking about your average whoops fire season situation here, people. This is the climate crisis smacking us in the face. And while the people of LA are showing their usual resilience, coming together to help each other through, let's be real. The system, well, it's kind of failing us. Again, these fires have been devastating. People are losing their homes, businesses are burned to the ground, and lives are turned upside down in a matter of hours. And you know the online discourse? Oh, it's been loud. Loud in all the right and most definitely wrong ways. Some people point to the dry conditions as the problem, others point to the lack of proper forest management. But let's all take a moment to acknowledge the elephant in the room: climate change. Yeah, it's real, and it's happening. These fires are directly linked to a hotter, drier planet, and if we don't get our act together, next year's fires will make this look like a campfire. But LA is showing the world how to come together when disaster strikes. Neighbors are opening their doors to those who've lost everything. Volunteers are out in the streets with food, supplies, and some seriously much needed TLC. It's like a big, heartwarming community hug, and it's enough to restore your faith in humanity. But then we get hit with the not so fun side of things: insurance companies. Cue the dramatic music. Yep, insurance companies are showing their true colors once again. People who thought they were covered are now finding out their policies have been dropped faster than your New Year's resolution. Some insurance companies have been pulling out or slashing coverage for homes in high risk areas, leaving people with the impossible task of rebuilding without the safety net they were promised. So while the narrative might be, oh, the rich will rebuild their mansions, let's remember, not everyone in these communities has a gold plated credit card to bounce back on. Some people are just scraping by. And let's not get all high and mighty about who's struggling in these fires. I've seen some online chatter where people assume that if you have a mansion, you'll be just fine. While it's true that some people have the cash to rebuild quickly, no one is immune to the emotional toll of losing their home. People's connections to their homes, their families, their memories, that is priceless. It can't be replaced by insurance money. So before we start clutching our pearls about how rich people will just rebuild, let's remember that grief doesn't come with a price tag. People are grieving, LA is grieving, let them process it. Honestly, if there's anything we should be taking away from all of this, it's that we need to wake up. This isn't just a one off situation. These fires are happening every year and they're getting worse. So while we continue to see neighbors helping neighbors, we need to start thinking long term. How do we prepare for the next round? There are some real solutions that could help, like better forest management, fire resistant infrastructure, and investing in early warning systems that can help people evacuate before the worst happens. But also, climate policy, people. We need real policy that tackles the root causes of these fires. From stronger environmental protections to investing in renewable energy, we have to stop pretending this is just a temporary problem. The way we've been treating this planet, it's catching up with us. It's time to stop acting like this isn't a crisis, because it is. So, as LA continues to rebuild and recover, we need to keep the conversation going about how we can stop this from happening again. These fires are just the latest reminder that climate change is no longer a future problem. It's here, it's now, and it's affecting everyone. Let's stop waiting until the next disaster to take action. Let's get proactive. And for everyone affected by these fires, just know we see you. LA's strength and the strength of humanity will always rise. Let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments below. Now, we're heading to the rugged mountains of Nepal, where the stakes are high, the views are breathtaking, and the nurses absolutely legendary. We're talking about Nepal's incredible Safe Motherhood program, which is saving lives one remote village at a time. Let's set the scene. Nurse Samjana Salami, armed with a portable ultrasound, is checking on a pregnant woman in the middle of nowhere. The woman's heartbeat flickers to life on the screen. No, it's not a superhero origin story, but it's pretty close. A few years ago, this woman would have had to give birth at home because, well, getting to a hospital was like trying to hike up Everest, minus the snow and the fancy climbing gear. But thanks to the National Safe Motherhood Program, things are changing. The government's been offering travel reimbursements and free hospital births, making it a lot easier for women in remote regions to get the care they need. It's like the program waved a magic wand and said, you get a hospital birth, you get a hospital birth. Hospital births went from 10% to nearly 80%, and maternal mortality dropped by a jaw-dropping 72%. That's not just impressive. That's like winning a healthcare Olympics. And the nurses, they're the real MVPs. Samjana, for example, is hiking up mountains every month to make sure pregnant women get the care they deserve. These nurses don't get a cape, but they definitely deserve one. But here's the kicker. While Nepal's made huge strides, it's not all smooth sailing from here. Donor funds are starting to dry up, and the government's health budget is getting stretched thinner than a piece of naan. To keep up this progress, Nepal needs to get creative. Innovation is the name of the game now. Think less, wait for a miracle. More, let's make this sustainable. So what's the plan? Well, it's simple. The nurses keep trekking, bringing life-saving care to women who would otherwise have to make a dangerous journey. But to make this long-term, they need ongoing support, fresh ideas, and a big old dose of creativity to keep this momentum going. Let me know in the comments below. If you think these stories of innovation and determination deserve a round of applause, let's keep pushing the conversation forward about how we can all make a difference, no matter how far we have to hike. For our third story of the day, we're focusing on digital innovations that were supposed to totally revolutionize healthcare. We're talking futuristic, tech-powered systems that would make everything smoother, faster, and more efficient. But instead of being the superhero that swoops in to save the day, health workers in many places are now stuck wrestling with a mess of apps and systems that are overlapping in all the wrong ways. It's like expecting a sleek, self-driving car and getting a rusty bike with a broken chain. Here's the real tea. Instead of saying goodbye to those chaotic paper records, health workers are now dealing with multiple apps, multiple devices, and multiple data entry points. Talk about a digital nightmare. It's like playing an endless game of whack-a-mole, except every mole is a different app. Oh, did you want that data here? Nope, it's over there. And good luck syncing it up. Natya Ratanaprayal, a tech officer at the World Health Organization, aka the voice of reason in the chaos, summed it up nicely. Healthcare workers are basically drowning in a sea of digital clutter. It's like they were promised a high-tech spa day, but instead, they're stuck in a room full of malfunctioning gadgets that all need their attention at once. A digital nightmare with no escape button. So, what's the fix? Drum roll, please. Standardization. Cue the angels singing. To untangle this mess, they're introducing fast healthcare interoperability resources. Yes, we're calling it FYR, like FYER, because who has time for a whole extra syllable? This open source standard is supposed to make digital exchanges easier, kind of like when you finally get your entire playlist synced up across all devices. It's supposed to make everything talk to each other, so health systems aren't just throwing data at each other and hoping it sticks. Now, let's not get too excited just yet. FIR is still in the slow and steady wins the race phase in low and middle income countries, and WHO is playing fairy godmother, guiding countries on how to make it work. They're creating all this guidance to make sure new health apps follow the same standards. Kind of like trying to get all your apps to finally agree on one operating system. But it's still easier said than done, right? Because here's the hard truth. Fixing this digital mess takes more than just a couple of good intentions and a snazzy new standard. It's going to need real resources and probably some serious elbow grease from national governments to make it happen. We're talking full on national digital health strategies. I know it sounds boring, but it's necessary. Otherwise, the only thing we'll be revolutionizing is how much time health workers spend entering the same info in 12 different apps. Let's cross our fingers that tech actually makes healthcare easier, not just techier. Because seriously, if I have to enter the same info in 5 different apps one more time, I'm going straight to paper. Let me know your thoughts below. All right. So last year in December, the OECD headquarters in Paris was the stage for the Athens Roundtable on AI and the rule of law. What's that, you ask? Oh, just a little get together of academics, politicians, civil society, and tech companies to discuss how we should, govern AI. You'd think they'd have a little more fun. But hey, it was all about setting the groundwork for the upcoming Artificial Intelligence Action Summit hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron in February this year. No big deal, just reshaping the future of AI over some croissants. Now, one of the standout voices at this roundtable was Tanzanian MP Nima Lugangira, who has no patience for the lack of African representation at these AI gatherings. She made it crystal clear that while the global north is busy making policies for AI, Africa is being left behind. And guess what? Africa's growing population is basically a data goldmine for AI developers. But plot twist, they're not exactly getting a fair share of the profit. Nima, chair of the African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance, threw some serious shade at this. She said, since we do not have the similar robust policy and legislative framework of AI like the global north, it means that as Africans and as other global south countries, we are at risk of being abused, manipulated, or taking advantage of the lack of systems in place through data monetization. Yeah, let's be real. Data is basically the new oil, and Africa is rich in it, but they're being asked to pay for their own oil while the rest of the world takes it for free. Sounds a little shady. Nima pointed out that when data is extracted freely from Africa, it's not a fair trade. Governments then have to pay for the data that they already own, and don't even get us started on how that data was taken in the first place. The global south gets left with the short end of the stick, and the north gets the money. Someone needs to fix this, and fast. Her solution? Work with the national governments and make sure there are global minimum acceptable standards for AI. Not just a set of standards for the shiny, well funded countries, but ones that actually protect the rights of people in the global south. So, we're talking about safeguarding everyone, not just the ones with the big budgets and high tech gadgets. It's time for the global south to have a seat at the table, and Nima's putting the world on notice. No more free data grabs. So let's hope the upcoming summit actually takes this seriously and doesn't just turn into another let's talk about AI event where no one actually listens to the people who are most affected. Let me know your thoughts below. Is AI leaving people and places holding the most valuable resources behind? All right, let's talk about one of the most exciting and potentially controversial innovations happening in health facilities across the global south: artificial intelligence. And no, this isn't just about your smartphone suggesting what pizza you should order. In Uganda, health officials are taking AI to the next level by using it to help diagnose malaria and other diseases. And no, it's not a science fiction fantasy. It's real and it's happening right now. Here's how it works. Doctors are attaching microscopic eyepieces to smartphones to get digital images of blood samples. Yeah, your phone can now help fight malaria. Talk about high tech. The AI algorithm then takes those images, identifies the individual malaria parasites, and compares them to a massive image dataset to determine if there's an infection. And here's the kicker: it does all of this in about 90 seconds. That's right, 90 seconds. Compare that to a human using a microscope, the gold standard of malaria diagnosis, which takes a whole 15 minutes on average. 15 minutes. You could watch an entire cat video in less time than it takes a human to diagnose malaria. Now, before anyone starts panicking that AI will steal all the jobs, let me stop you right there. There's a fear that these AI interventions might push health workers out of jobs. But let's put that to rest. The folks at the AI Health Lab in Uganda are not trying to replace doctors or nurses. Instead, they see AI as a tool to help lighten their workloads. Think of it as a sidekick, not the hero, but the one that helps you say the day faster. So, while the AI is diagnosing malaria in a snap, the doctors and nurses can focus on the more complicated stuff that requires a human touch. Everyone wins, right? And it's not just malaria. The developers at the AI Health Lab are also working with the Uganda Cancer Institute to create technology that could help diagnose cervical cancer. Talk about a game changer. With better, faster diagnostics, we're looking at a health system that's more efficient and can help save lives. But like any superhero, AI comes with some limitations. For starters, not every community has reliable internet, and we all know that AI needs a solid connection to work its magic. So, yeah, that's a bit of a roadblock, especially in some of the remote areas that could benefit the most from these innovations. Then there's the issue of trust. Some patients may be skeptical about accepting a diagnosis from AI rather than a doctor. And hey, I get it. AI doesn't exactly have a bedside manner. Hey, your results are in, oh, by the way, I don't have arms to hold your hand. But these are challenges that can be overcome. With more infrastructure, better internet connectivity, and maybe some digital trust building exercises, AI could revolutionize how healthcare is delivered in underserved areas. And the fact that it's already starting to show promise in places like Uganda is honestly mind blowing. It's proof that when technology meets healthcare, the possibilities are endless. So while AI might not replace doctors anytime soon, it sure looks like it's going to be a major ally in the fight against diseases like malaria. It's like giving healthcare a tech powered upgrade. And who doesn't want that? What do you think? Could AI be the game changer healthcare needs, or are we getting ahead of ourselves? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And now, our last story is diving into some high level legal drama today. International Court of Justice, ICJ style. So, grab your gavel and let's break it down. The ICJ is currently hearing testimony from nearly 100 countries, all with one thing on their minds. They want to clarify the legal responsibility of governments when it comes to climate change. Yep, you heard that right. The world's top court is basically holding a global climate law conference, and everyone's trying to figure out who's on the hook for fixing the mess we've made. The countries giving testimony are hoping that the court will officially recognize that high emitting countries have a legal duty under international law to cut emissions, and here's the kicker, pay reparations for the climate damage they've caused. And it's not just about climate law, they want this framed under human rights law. So, yeah, the stakes are pretty high. You can't just play Monopoly with the earth and expect no one to call you out for cheating. Jean-Yves Remy, an international trade lawyer from Barbados, explains that this isn't just about, hey, let's get the court to make a decision. Oh no, honey, it's about showing the agency of those most affected by climate change. The goal is to force clarity on what countries are actually obligated to do and what happens if they don't live up to their promises. What's the fallout when a country skips out on their responsibilities? Is the real question here. But don't get too excited. The court's ruling isn't legally binding. So, while we might get some clarity, it's not like we'll be sending countries to climate jail. Now, this whole movement didn't just sprout overnight. No. It was started 5 years ago by some very forward thinking law students in Fiji. And if you think that's where the drama ends, think again. Vanuatu, the Pacific island nation that was ravaged by a double cyclone last year, yes, two cyclones because why not, picked up the torch. They pushed this case to the UN General Assembly, and eventually it got passed along to the ICJ. So now we're sitting here, watching countries argue about how the big polluters, looking at you, high emitting countries, should be held accountable. The countries involved in the case want two things clarified. First, they want to know exactly what the big polluting nations' obligations are in protecting the earth from all these greenhouse gases. Second, they're looking for legal consequences for countries that have caused significant harm to the climate and the environment through their actions, or more frustratingly, their inaction. So basically, if you're just sitting back letting the planet burn, there should be consequences. And honestly, with all this legal noise happening, we can't help but wonder, will the ICJ's reputation stay intact? I mean, after their ruling on the Gaza conflict wasn't respected by the United States, Hello, international law. Oh, goodbye, international law. It's hard not to have some doubts. If countries start ignoring the ICJ's rulings, it could really take the wind out of their sails. So, while I'm hoping for some solid decisions on climate accountability, I also kind of want the ICJ to keep their credibility intact. Because if these rulings keep getting brushed aside, it's going to look like the court is just another stage for political theater. And that's not something I'm ready to see happen. So, here's hoping that the ICJ doesn't get tossed around like a political football and actually starts holding the world's biggest polluters accountable. Because let's be real, the planet doesn't have time for more waiting games. What do you think? Does the ICJ have merit in their ruling? Let me know your thoughts below. Whew, that was a lot, huh? From wildfires to AI saving lives, and even the International Court of Justice serving some spicy legal tea, let's just say today's news is giving us all the feels. But seriously, we've got to keep the pressure on because if we're not fighting for fairness in climate policies, tech, and healthcare, who is? So, if you enjoyed this roller coaster of reality, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hey, leave your thoughts in the comments below. What's your take on the global fight for accountability? Let's keep the conversation rolling. And remember, every little bit counts, and so do you. You've got the power to change the world, so let's keep pushing the boundaries and making the world a better place together. See you next time, change makers.